Seconds before takeoff, my son shouted Dad. A touching reveal that left everyone in tears. Michael rushed through the terminal, the footsteps of hurried passengers echoing around him like a frantic heartbeat. The weight of his briefcase felt crushing, but he barely noticed as the buzz of anticipation coiled tightly in his chest. He could practically taste the promotion that awaited him on this business trip, a reward for years of hard work as an airline mechanic. Yet even amid the whirlwind of excitement, a creeping anxiety clung to him like a shadow whispering doubts into his subconscious. To a world that deified ambition, he was a fine example, a dedicated, single father who had sacrificed everything for his son, Jake. Memories of his own upbringing flashed through his mind, growing up with a single mother in a small town, working multiple jobs to provide for him. So why now, when success seemed within reach, did the thought of leaving Jake behind gnaw at him? As he turned a corner, Jake's name echoed in his mind, accentuating the inner conflict he couldn't escape. Suddenly, a sweet yet desperate voice cut through the din of clattering luggage carts and urgent announcements. Dad! Panic flashed through Michael as he turned. There was Jake, his big eyes shimmering with uncertainty, trembling slightly. The bustling crowd faded into silence, all attention shifting to the boy who stood alone in a sea of adults. It felt as if each person held their breath, sharing in the unspoken tension. Kneeling down, Michael could feel the emotional chasm stretching between them, broadening with each minute he dedicated to his job rather than his son. Jake clutched a well-worn scrapbook to his chest. It was the same one they had filled with vibrant drawings from days spent at the baseball field, fishing by the lake, those once cherished moments that now felt like fragile glass, ready to shatter. I don't want you to go, Dad, Jake whispered, his voice edged with a quiver that twisted in Michael's gut. Could he lose what they built together, what mattered most? He wrestled with conflicting emotions in the blink of an eye. On one hand, he longed to embrace the venture that promised to elevate their lives, to finally secure stability. Yet, how could he chase ambition at the expense of Jake's support? Every word Jake had pulled from his heart was a knife twisting in Michael's resolve, making him question what true success meant. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The boarding call blared again, urgency slicing through the air. Michael's heart raced, torn between security and childish laughter that haunted him like a melody he always wished to preserve. He felt paralyzed, his eyes flickering between the departing gate and Jake's pained expression, an all too familiar tension winding tight around his mind. Could he walk away? The thought of leaving his son, of failing him when it mattered most, was an unbearable weight. Thoughts spiraled. Regret, anger, love, and fear all converged into an indiscernible mass as time slowed. Just as doubt threatened to swallow him whole, he felt the fragile but fierce connection of what it meant to be a father duty battling against desire. The air felt charged, every passing second beckoning a decision that would ripple through their lives. Would this be the moment he forever regretted? The distance between them felt insurmountable, yet the clock ticked down, and the pressure built. With clenching fists and a racing heart, Michael stood on the precipice of his choice, the clock ticking as both futures loomed unstable before him. At that pivotal moment, Michael could feel the weight of expectation bearing down on him, a suffocating force that threatened to eclipse everything he valued. The din of the airport faded into an indistinct hum. All he could hear was the thudding of his heart and the pleading look in Jake's eyes. The glitter of the departure screen dimmed in the background as his mind unraveled the layers of its turmoil. He envisioned the promotion, a higher salary, better stability, the satisfaction of having risen through the ranks in a competitive world. But the thrill of potential success morphed into a claustrophobic dread, each passing second expanding the chasm between him and his son. Dad! Jake's voice broke through Michael's haze, raw and trembling, pulling him back to the reality of their moment. Michael knelt, examining every facet of his son's face: the tear-streaked cheeks, the furrowed brow that mirrored his own anxiety, the innocent hope that wanted nothing more than reassurance. He recalled their nights spent building Lego towers, the way Jake's laughter echoed against the walls as they battled imaginary pirates, or created magical worlds together. Those moments resonated with clarity now, louder and more vivid than the promise of a new job ever could be. Pushing himself to think critically, Michael pondered what his promotion truly represented. Was it success if it meant diminishing his role as a father? Every fiber of his being screamed that moments like this mattered more than corporate accolades. The anxiety began to twist into a burning determination. "Jake," he began, feeling the tension ripple between them like a live wire, "I promise, I'm coming back. But I need to do this for both of us." As he spoke, it became a mantra, a reassurance he hoped would resonate through his own uncertainty. Jake's gaze softened, filling with an unmistakable resolve. "You'll miss our game on Saturday, though," he said softly, words laced with vulnerability. In that fleeting acknowledgement, Michael felt the gust of guilt surge anew. It was a fair trade-off they had been negotiating silently: work versus family, ambition versus love. Yet, within that guilt, an unexpected clarity emerged. Maybe this venture could open a door not just for him, but for Jake too. He could ensure they wouldn't just survive, but thrive. Perhaps he could teach Jake the value of pursuing his passions, even when the path seemed daunting. Choosing to chase his career didn't necessarily mean abandoning their shared moments. It was about leading by example. The boarding announcement soon thrummed through the air again, more urgent this time. Michael felt the stakes rise as uncertainty cascaded around them. With each second dragging, anxiety mingled with a burgeoning courage, pushing him further into uncharted territory. Should he stay or go? Here he found himself at a crossroads, a defining moment. He stood, feeling the weight of the briefcase, more than just a vessel of paperwork and obligation. It became a testament to his hard work, a symbol laden with promises yet to be fulfilled. "I'll be back. I want you to know you mean everything to me. We're a team, right?" He marveled at his own words, unearthing a hidden strength in the midst of the storm. "Right," Jake said, the smallest smile dancing at the corners of his mouth, but uncertainty still crinkled his forehead. As the clock ticked down and the final call for boarding echoed through the terminal, Michael made the choice that would define their journey. He turned towards the gate, resolving to embrace this opportunity, while keeping the promise to Jake alive. Yet deep within him, the question remained: had he made the right decision, or was he inching towards a life of regret? The path ahead was uncertain, but Michael knew he would face whatever shadows loomed, not just for himself, but for Jake's future. With this newfound determination, he approached the gate, his mind teeming with possibilities and fear. He held tightly to the hope that he could turn this journey into a stepping stone rather than a fault line. But as he took those first steps toward the aircraft, he braced himself for the reality that lay ahead, one that required him to confront not only the challenges of work but the personal demands of being a father. As he settled into his seat, doubts unfurled in his mind, mingled with excitement about the road to come. Who would he encounter on this trip? Would he learn something that would change everything? And would he be able to return to Jake with the assurance of a better life, or would the distance deepen the divide forever? The plane hummed quietly as it began its taxi down the runway, each vibration resonating with a mix of anxiety and anticipation that gnawed at Michael's insides. He felt as if the aircraft carried more than just passengers. It bore the weight of his ambitions and his promise to Jake. Would this trip be his breakthrough or a diversion from what truly mattered? As the plane lifted off, soaring towards an uncertain promise, Michael's mind raced through the intricacies of his career. He had always defined himself first through work. It was how he secured respect and, ultimately, a sense of worth. Yet now, he tried to reconcile those ambitions with the reality of being a father. A part of him yearned for professional validation, while another part recoiled at the cost of that pursuit. The clear blue sky contrasted sharply with the tumult within him. He closed his eyes for a moment, envisioning Jake's wide eyes, the way they sparkled with awe and boundless curiosity. "I need to make this work," he muttered under his breath, "not just for his future, but for Jake's understanding of how to chase one's dreams. But what precisely would that dream cost him? As the seatbelt sign flickered off, the cabin buzzed with conversations, laughter, and an understated excitement. Michael allowed himself to be pulled into the energetic atmosphere, seeking ways to harness that energy for his own growth. He fidgeted with the business card of the director he hoped to impress, a tangible representation of opportunity that now felt as daunting as it was hopeful. He knew he had to use these moments not just to network, but to showcase his capabilities, to highlight his years of dedication. "Are you on your way to a deal?" a passenger seated next to him asked, breaking his introspection. The man had a genial demeanor, the kind that put people at ease. As they exchanged pleasantries, Michael felt a hint of his confidence returning. It was an opening, a chance to count connections over coffee rather than trophies. They shared stories, and he realized everyone faced their own crossroads, their own burdens hidden beneath polished exteriors. In the back of his mind, doubt still whispered. How would he juggle this new role while maintaining his commitments as a father? He recalled a phrase he had once read: "Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success." Drearily, he pondered if happiness came in moments, if it would find him in corporate success or slip through his fingers in its chase. Their conversation shifted to family life, and for a moment, Michael's heart ached, missing Jake's laughter and the comfort of their shared rituals. The man next to him shared about his own struggles to connect with his kids amid work pressure, resonating deeply with Michael's plight. Here was an unexpected revelation. He wasn't alone in grappling with the very balance he feared losing. As the plane entered smoother air, Michael leaned into that comfort, taking mental notes, and crafting strategies on how he could operate not just as an employee, but as a father committed to preserving his bond with Jake. He started drafting an outline of actionable goals not just for this job, but on how to integrate fatherhood with his professional journey. Could he propose flexible hours once he returned? Could he involve Jake in his projects to teach him valuable lessons of resilience? The flight continued, and while visions of boardrooms danced in his head, he etched an equal commitment to his home life into his plans. With every word shared with his seatmate, a sense of purpose solidified within him. It wasn't merely about achieving a promotion. This venture could redefine his understanding of success altogether, a space where ambition and family could coexist harmoniously. As the descent began, Michael realized how the harsh landscape of his indecision had turned into fertile ground for growth. He felt invigorated, yet uncertain of how it would play out upon his return. Could he truly align the two worlds he balanced precariously? He tightened his grip on the armrest, breath steadying as he prepared for whatever lay ahead. But amid these burgeoning thoughts, one stark truth loomed: he had to confront whatever awaited him on this trip, be it opportunity or obstacle. The time had come to face his own definitions of success and failure. Would he possess the insight to translate his internal revelations into tangible change, or would he crumble under the pressures or expectations both at work and home? The plane jolted gently upon landing, the wheels kissing the tarmac with a sense of finality that reverberated in Michael's chest. He shook his head, dispelling the remnants of the cabin warmth. The high-stakes meeting awaited him, but under the sterile hum of professionalism lingered thoughts of Jake. Clenching the business card tighter, he recalled their last conversation and the way Jake's face had brightened when he explained what it meant to chase dreams. Suddenly, everything felt more vivid, as if he were staring at a future painted with his son's hopes. Standing in the terminal, amidst a sea of travelers, Michael felt his heart accelerate, not with nerves about his meeting, but rather with the palpable yearning to put his newfound commitment into action. Would he embody the lessons he had absorbed during the flight, or would the corporate demands extinguish them under the weight of his responsibilities? As he made his way to the meeting room, he reflected on his open dialogue with the man from the plane. Would he be able to turn that moment of connection into mentorship opportunities? The mere notion both excited and frightened him. He had traditionally navigated these spaces alone, sidestepping vulnerability for the sake of professional advancement. Yet now he recognized the value in collaboration, fueling a sense of empowerment he hardly knew he craved. In the conference room, plush chairs circled a polished table, sunlight bathing the space in a soft glow that momentarily quelled his anxiety. After exchanging brief introductions, the conversation swiftly turned towards his proposed project. The stakes were high. He was not just advocating for himself, but for a principle he hadn't realized he held so dearly: the importance of integrating personal values within corporate goals. Suddenly, the abstract notion of this integration came alive as he eloquently articulated his vision. Flexibility in the workplace isn't just a perk, he asserted, his voice steadying. It's about recognizing that our lived experiences shape our professional outputs. If I could involve my son in my work, it would not only demonstrate the value of resilience but showcase how our personal stories can foster deeper connections in business. Families matter. An unexpected murmur erupted from the members of the board, and Michael braced himself. Doubt writhed in the pit of his stomach as he took in their expressions, some intrigued, others skeptical. One executive, a woman with sharp features, leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Are you suggesting that personal commitments should influence our professional landscapes?" she challenged. "Yes," he replied, an electric sensation coursing through him. "I believe by allowing space for our family commitments, we're cultivating a more engaged and compassionate workforce, a workforce that understands life's complexities." The tension inside him fluctuated like a pendulum, caught between the thrill of speaking his truth and the fear of rejection. But defending this belief felt right. This wasn't merely a pitch, it was a chance to reshape his narrative, to merge the tangled threads of his personal and professional life into a coherent whole. As discussions continued, he perceived flickers of agreement surfacing among his colleagues. A seasoned director eventually spoke up. "Michael, your approach is novel. It raises questions we have ignored. But there's a risk, not all would share your perspective." He accepted the assertion, sensing a new challenge burgeon. The room needed reshaping, and while he sought common ground, the notion of valorizing his priorities was simultaneously liberating and unnerving. Within that meeting, Michael recognized a turning point. He was not merely the employee presenting a project, he was a man in pursuit of authenticity, striving to manifest an integrated version of himself. And just like that, he understood the necessity of this confrontation, both in business and in the personal realm. He had ventured into a territory where ambition collided with human connection. Emerging from the meeting, Michael felt the weight of decisions resting heavily on his shoulders, the outcome still uncertain. A choice lingered in the air: would he remain steadfast in advocating for this shift, no matter the pushback, or would he revert to the familiar confines of traditional ambition? He left the building with a flutter of hope, battling the shadows of doubt, a battle defined not just by professional accolades but personal growth. Pursuing success was about navigating challenges. He had his answer. He would lean in, embrace discomfort, and remain true to both his work and his values. But as he exited, a message blinked on his phone, a picture of Jake, grinning, holding a sign that expressed his pride. The image tugged at Michael's heart, weaving the threads of their connection ever tighter. How would he harness that emotion into actionable steps toward integration? Preparing for the journey ahead, he realized he must not only confront the professional landscape but also unearth the deeper stories waiting to be told at home. The tension widened, propelling him into reflections that felt omnipresent. The next choice begged to be made. What would that new narrative entail, and could he find the courage to bridge those two worlds meaningfully? The afternoon sun streamed through the office windows as Michael stood at his desk, the shadows of self-doubt creeping back into his mind. Even as he recalled the satisfaction of sharing his vision during the meeting, he felt the weight of potential failure pressing against him. The board members' murmurs twisted in his mind, echoing both skepticism and intrigue, a reminder that he was deviating from the well-trodden path of corporate norms. He flipped through pages of notes, his hands shaking slightly as he wrote out actionable steps for his proposal. Michael understood the necessity of addressing the emotional side of work-life balance. Still, the contours of fear lurked just beneath the surface, reminding him of the fragility of dreams. "Dad?" Jake's voice suddenly broke through the haze of his thoughts, a wave of warmth cascading over him. The memory of the picture flashed in his mind, a snapshot of his son's pride lighting up his own. Yet now, he wrestled with the question, How could he embody that pride when the spectral grip of corporate expectations threatened to suffocate his ideals? "Jake," he whispered under his breath, catching himself before his resolve wavered. Granting himself the moment, he took a deep breath. Conviction replaced trepidation, igniting a small flame of determination within him. He reimagined what Jake might think of a father who bent but did not break, someone willing to take risks for authenticity. The convergence of personal and professional life was essential, yet Michael understood that articulating this to others wouldn't be easy. Could he actually create a culture that embraced vulnerability? After all, he was challenging a deeply ingrained corporate mentality, one that was often resistant to change. Dialing Jake's number, he found himself pacing the room as it rang. The prospect of sharing his thoughts with his son fueled a rush of confidence that he hadn't expected. Would Jake understand the significance of his vulnerabilities? Would he, as a child, grasp the profound connection between them, one that fortified personal growth alongside professional aspirations? "Hey, Dad!" Jake chirped, joy bursting through the phone's speaker. "Hey, buddy. I just wanted to check in," and Michael hesitated, swayed by an impulse to shield his son from the complexities of adult uncertainties. But this was precisely it. Jake was not merely a child. He was part of a shared narrative, one that encompassed the beauty of ambition and the reality of doubt. "I wanted to tell you about my day. I had an important meeting today," he began, his voice steadier than before. Explaining his vision and the challenges he faced felt right. Weaving together their stories presented an opportunity to teach resilience. "Did you win?" Jake's eagerness radiated through the phone, and Michael's heart swelled. "I'm not sure yet, but I stood up for what I believe in. It's not just about winning or losing, Jake. It's about being true to myself." Silence lingered, and Michael braced himself for his son's response. "That's so cool, Dad. I think it's brave." That one response pierced through his self-doubt, accumulating into a wave of clarity. Jake's unwavering belief was infectious, and in that moment, Michael comprehended he wasn't just fighting for his dreams anymore. He was cultivating a legacy of authenticity, a bridge for future generations to traverse. "Thanks, buddy. It means a lot," he said, each word resonating with a newfound conviction as he glanced at the proposal papers scattered chaotically on his desk. "We all have to chase our dreams, right? Even if it gets hard?" "Right." Jake's excitement echoed through the line. "You'll help other people, too." The brief conversation revitalized him, melding purpose with courage. He adjusted his notes, ideas swirling into actionable strategies. He envisioned workshops, community forums, and training that promoted vulnerability as a strength. He could cultivate mentorship relationships that echoed the warmth of his talk with Jake, forging connections that resembled the authenticity he championed. As he mapped out a plan, uncertainty transformed into a thrilling challenge. He knew that change would meet resistance, but the prospect of evolving the corporate landscape was exhilarating. Michael's thoughts turned inward once more, lingering on a simple truth: the real battle lay not in winning the approval of corporate giants, but in conquering his own fears. Coupling personal ambition with the collective ethos of emotional honesty felt like breathing life into his vision. He set an appointment with the executive director, a bold step toward pursuing collaborative engagement. The stakes had never been higher, but with Jake's words echoing in his ears, he felt fortified. He wasn't merely an employee. He was a catalyst for transformation. As he prepared, a sudden thought struck him. The journey was just beginning, and while the impact on his career remained uncertain, he was resolute. This path would not only forge his legacy but would also empower others to chase their authentic selves. But before he could finalize his plans, one undeniable notion emerged: if he was to truly confront his old self, he needed to devise a strategy for engaging with those who might stand against him, a necessary confrontation that could either catalyze change or reinforce the status quo. The time had come to face the skepticism head-on. His next meeting was already looming. Would he lean into the challenge or succumb to the fear of rejection once more? As Michael sat at his desk, the vacant office around him suddenly felt insufferably small, like a cage that was slowly tightening. Self-doubt still lurked at the edges of his mind, but with each passing moment, He could hear Jake's voice, fervent, unyielding, urging him forward. He had always excelled at avoiding conflict, choosing the safe route over the unpredictable. Today would be different. Today was about stepping into his own power, and acknowledging that real change demanded confrontation. He pulled out his notes, now riddled with bold ideas and vague uncertainties. The meeting loomed like a distant storm, but he refused to let it rain on his resolve. Writing became a cathartic release as he made lists of potential questions, possible scenarios, and counterarguments he would likely face. He visualized himself standing before his peers, a sea of skeptical expressions, arms crossed, ready to defend their entrenched beliefs. But the thought no longer repelled him, it excited him. Michael began to rehearse his points, crafting not just arguments but narratives that could weave vulnerability into the fabric of corporate culture. They didn't just need data and projections, they needed stories to remember. He shifted in his seat, recalling moments of profound change in his life, each infused with opportunity wrapped in uncertainty. The truths he gathered formed the backbone of his proposal. In sharing those moments, he would give his colleagues permission to be open, too. He remembered his first job, naive and hungry for approval. He had learned there that authority was often wielded like a sword, striking fear into those beneath it. He had promised himself that if he ever found himself in a leadership position, he would take a different approach, one where vulnerability could signal strength rather than weakness. The memories felt like fuel, a fire ignited within him as he planned the structure of his talk. As he stood to pace, the rhythmic clicking of his footsteps punctuated the still air. He couldn't help but confront a more daunting thought. Each idea he was articulating had the potential to dismantle existing hierarchies, to disturb the comfort of those who thrived in the status quo. Would he gain respect by challenging the accepted code of conduct, or would he be met with dismissal and scorn? The balance of those polarizing outcomes weighed heavily on him. A firm knock on the door brought him back to the present. It was David, his closest ally in the office, a man unafraid to be his own voice in the corporate wilderness. "Michael, you ready for this?" David asked, sensing the tension. "I don't know," Michael admitted, wiping his palms against his pants to dispel the clammy feeling. "What if they don't understand? What if I fail?" "You're only failing if you don't try," David answered. "They'll either embrace the change or resist it. Either way, you're moving the dialogue forward. It's about time someone did." Michael nodded, grounding himself in those words. He looked past David, out the window into the expansive skyline that stretched before him. Wasn't there beauty in the uncertainty of it all? "You're right. Thank you." As they made their way down the hall, Michael's pulse quickened. The meeting room was just ahead, and reality tightened its grip. He could feel a storm brewing not just outside but within himself. He had to demand space for his ideas, to ask for opinions about a culture change that encouraged emotional honesty. Entering the room, he was met with a collection of familiar faces, each representing a fragment of the old values he sought to challenge. For a moment, everything stood still. Then, he remembered Jake's innocent belief, his unwavering courage. It crystallized his purpose. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, unexpectedly steady. "I'm here to talk about something that I believe can redefine the very fabric of our work culture." But before he could proceed further, the door creaked open in the back, and in walked the head of the board committee, someone notorious for not shying away from difficult conversations. The tension shifted palpably as their eyes met. "Let's stir the waters, shall we?" she said, a challenge lacing her tone. As Michael stepped deeper into the conversation, heart racing with each word, he had to consider, would he rise to meet this moment, or retreat once more into self-doubt? As the discussion unfurled, anticipation hung in the air. His voice trembled, emboldened by both fear and determination, ready to unravel the tightly held beliefs of those around him. This was his moment to fight, not just for his vision but for a legacy that transcended his own. Yet, even in that pivotal moment, he couldn't shake the unease that those sharing this space were waiting for him to falter. Would he rise or would he fall? Michael felt the weight of the room press down on him, a tangible force that both invigorated and terrified him. As he glanced at his colleagues, he noted the varying reactions, Some appeared skeptical, while others seemed genuinely intrigued. The head of the board committee, her sharp gaze fixed on him, sparked a tumult of conflicting emotions. "Let us stir the waters, shall we?" she had said, and in that moment, he realized that she wasn't just a challenger, she was a catalyst. The very presence of her skepticism forced him to excavate deeper into his thoughts while simultaneously solidifying his resolve. He inhaled slowly, allowing the air to fill his lungs with courage, and set forth. "Change is difficult," he began, his voice steady yet warm. "However, it is necessary for growth. Today, I'm here to advocate for a shift in our culture, one that embraces vulnerability as a path to innovation and connection." He could see their eyebrows raise, some faces exchanging glances. This was the first hurdle breaking the silence that value had built around them. He passionately recounted his own experiences, the struggles, the failures, the triumphs, always highlighting the moments when vulnerability opened doors that had previously remained closed. "When I was new to this field, I feared that showing weakness would undermine my authority," he continued, capturing their attention with a story that echoed his earlier sentiments. "But the truth is, it didn't weaken my position, it strengthened my relationships," he asserted, catching the eye of his closest colleague, David, who offered an encouraging nod. He spoke from the heart, believing fiercely in his capacity to push this paradigm. As the narrative unfolded, the committee head interjected, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. "You tell us to embrace vulnerability as strength. How do you propose we implement such a radical shift without losing productivity or authority, Michael?" That question sliced through his bravado, laying bare the battleground he stood upon. His mind raced as he recalled tips from his growth-focused readings. This wasn't merely about change, it was about creating a safe space where peers could express their concerns. He had to think quickly. "By initiating open forums where employees can share their experiences without judgment," he replied, finding his footing again. "We need to design a system where feedback flows freely, where every opinion counts. Encouraging narratives that humanize our experiences gives us resilience as a team. Connection is the antidote to fear." He could see the skepticism morph into curiosity, but the committee head was not finished. "And what happens if that openness reveals discomfort, discord, or worse yet, failure in leadership?" she challenged, eyebrows raised, her tone unyielding. "The risk is the very essence of growth," Michael countered. "Without facing discomfort, we become stagnant. And true leaders must embrace difficult dialogues, not shy away from them." The conviction in his words surprised even him. This conversation was no longer just a presentation. It was a reckoning, a possibility of redefining their workspace together. As the discussion progressed, faces began to soften, crossed arms unfolded. One colleague even voiced a personal struggle. The moment felt electric, like an avalanche of inhibitions was beginning to crumble. But just as the atmosphere grew optimistic, a familiar voice echoed from within Michael. What if the real battle wasn't with his colleagues, but within himself? Could he truly stay committed to this new vision? The fear of faltering lingered at the back of his mind, the remnants of self-doubt murmuring beneath the surface. Would he recognize setbacks as part of growth or retreat into avoidance once more? Just as he prepared to answer another question, a profound realization hit him: he couldn't navigate this alone. His growth would demand allies, and he understood that vulnerability wasn't just a concept he could preach. It was something he would need to embody, especially now. The committee head leaned back, contemplating his points, and Michael seized the moment. "I believe if we commit to honesty, we can revolutionize our understanding of success and authority. Each of us must become part of this conversation, not merely spectators," he urged. As the meeting wore on, more ideas generated from the spark he ignited, though a twinge of anxiety still lingered. He was venturing into territory fraught with potential backlash, yet what was the most terrifying possibility? The thought of inaction paralyzed him. Then, as the meeting drew to a close, he prepared to share a closing remark. Something deep within him whispered they were approaching a pivotal moment. Would they choose connection over complacency? Would he walk out of this room not only as a bearer of ideas but as a catalyst for actionable change in their very essence of collaboration? the floor was open for final thoughts. Would his colleagues dare to dive into this new frontier, or would resistance quench the flames he had ignited? The air thickened with anticipation as he spoke once more. Let us not just stir the waters. Let us dive in together and see what unfolds. As he finished, a silence hung heavy in the air. Michael's heart pounded in his chest. Would they embrace this shift or cling to the comfort of their old ways? In that crucial moment, one question lingered in his mind: was he ready for what could come next? The silence felt like an eternity, stretching out as Michael surveyed the room. Each glance was a whirlwind of uncertainty and anticipation. He could almost hear the cogs turning in his colleagues' minds. Would they truly venture beyond the familiar? Doubt gnawed at his insides, entwining with the thrill of potential change. There was no turning back. Slowly, the committee head broke the silence. Interesting perspective, she said, her voice measured but lacking the usual sharpness. But you've painted a rather idealistic picture, Michael. Tell me, what happens when the truth we uncover is more uncomfortable than we can handle? Now it was his turn to grapple with her question. His instinct urged him to frame his answer within the boundaries of optimism, but the gravity of her words weighted his thoughts. What if this approach exposed vulnerabilities that could fracture the very fabric of their organization? He considered his experiences once more, the truths that had both liberated and confined him. Embracing discomfort is the first step toward authenticity, he replied, regaining a sense of steadiness. It's how we equip ourselves to handle the hard truths. The realization hit him the breakthrough he sought also required him to navigate his own discomfort. He was advocating for something large, yet inextricably personal. Next to him, David leaned forward, mirroring his encouragement. Michael's right. Over the years, we've dodged honesty to avoid conflict. But without this shift, we risk losing our identity as a team. The solidarity in David's voice reinforced Michael's courage. Nevertheless, internal conflict raged in him. Could he truly support his colleagues through their discomfort while continuing to face his own? He had often faltered in radical honesty himself, fearful of judgment. Would he consistently model the change he now proposed? The question lingered, and it began to transform into clarity. With each passing moment, the weight of his own insecurities mustered into a kind of fierce resolve. Up until now, he had been vocal about change, yet the real test lay ahead, in his actions after this meeting. The desire for growth urged him forward, even in uncertainty. As thoughts coalesced, a surprising voice joined the conversation. I feel like I've been part of this team for years, and honestly, I've never felt safe sharing my struggles, one team member confessed. I'm fearful about what honesty would mean for my job, but maybe it's time we tried something different. A thread of vulnerability swept through the room, sparking a shift. Michael watched as more colleagues opened up, unveiling concerns and experiences that had been cocooned in silence for far too long. It was revelatory. A possibility of transformation lay before them, yet as hope illuminated those once closed faces, the quiet voice of self-doubt crept in once more. Would Michael rise to be the beacon of this change? The weight of their expectations bore down on him anew. He dared not falter now. Let us not just talk about this, he urged, galvanizing the room. Let us build a framework, workshops, follow-up discussions, whatever it takes to create a genuine space for candor. If we model vulnerability, we'll foster liberation. With every word spoken, a thrilling urgency coursed through him. He sensed that this moment was pivotal, not just for his colleagues, but for himself. They could either forge ahead together or let the tides of resistance pull them back into complacency. He took a breath, leaning into the discomfort because growth awaited on the other side. If we're going to change together, I need all of you on this journey with me. Can we commit to this? At that moment, a collective nod reverberated around the room. Fear and hope collided within him, a surge of adrenaline but also an awareness that commitment was only the beginning. As Michael looked into their eyes, an invigorating affirmation began to coalesce. But would his own resolve withstand the challenges ahead? The stakes had risen, and he distinctly sensed the shadows of doubt aligning against him. The discussion rumbled onward, tempting fate and forging connections, But naively, deep down, Michael prepared himself for the moment when his approach, the very cornerstone of his proposal, was put to the test. What did real vulnerability demand of him in practice, and could he truly inspire others if he couldn't embrace it himself? Outside the boardroom, the world spun on, and the possibility of a new beginning intersected with an unsettling reminder: the journey to authenticity would demand as much of him as it inspired in others. Would he be ready for the revelation that awaited him just beyond these walls? In the days that followed the meeting, Michael felt a strange combination of exhilaration and trepidation. The energy of that pivotal moment remained with him, humming just beneath the surface, urging him to dive deeper into the commitment he had made not just to his team, but to himself. Each day presented new challenges, and each challenge felt like a test of his fortitude. Despite the initial enthusiasm, he could feel the ebb and flow of doubt creeping back in as the mechanics of change began to unfold. It started with conversations that had once been considered taboo. Colleagues approached him in fits of vulnerability, sharing anxieties that had lived in silence for years. He listened, providing support where he could, but deep inside, unease coiled tightly around his heart. One morning, he was met with an unexpected email, an invitation for a follow-up meeting to discuss potential changes to workflows and team dynamics. The essence of the meeting was to evaluate feedback from the very interactions Michael had encouraged, yet what he felt most was the weight of expectation bearing down on his shoulders. One misstep could unravel the fragile threads they had woven together. As he prepared for the meeting, he recognized the duality of his situation, the role of a catalyst for change while grappling with his own insecurities. Could he authentically lead when he himself was still searching for solid ground? Perhaps he was misinterpreting the essence of vulnerability. It wasn't about pretending to have all the answers, but rather acknowledging the questions that remained. That realization spiraled into an internal monologue during his commute. Each traffic light felt like a countdown to that momentous meeting. How can I encourage openness if I'm unwilling to share my own struggles? They need to see me as a whole person, flawed yet striving, he thought. It was a critical juncture. If he blocked his truth, how could others feel free to express theirs? The meeting room was filled with an air of expectancy. Colleagues exchanged tentative smiles, but behind their enthusiasm lurked apprehension. Michael took a deep breath, reminded himself of their commitment to authenticity, and opened the floor. All right, everyone, today I want us to dive deep. Let us explore what honesty means for us and how we can create spaces where every voice feels safe, he said, his voice steady but edged with vulnerability. As discussion flowed, he noticed patterns emerging, fear cloaked as professionalism, and honesty tangled in apprehension. Suddenly, he found himself distinctively quieter, letting the others take the lead. Perhaps it was time to allow their voices to rise above his, but in retreating, he felt an unsettling sensation swell within him, a need to anchor the conversation. And there it was, a flicker of recognition ignited within him. He realized that while he had been encouraging his team to shed their facades, he himself was still shielded by a similar barrier. A moment of clarity crashed over him. Vulnerability isn't comfortable, and it's precisely that discomfort where growth lies. Without embracing his own narrative, he risked remaining as static as before. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on various faces, each revealing a muted yet palpable desire for authenticity. In that moment, he shared a piece of himself he'd long kept locked away, a struggle with imposter syndrome that had shadowed his professional life. The words felt heavy on his tongue, but as they traversed into the atmosphere, something shifted. Their responses were immediate, a ripple effect of shared experiences. The often feared admissions of inadequacy melted away, initiating a cleansing wave of connection. Yet as empowering as that moment was, the looming question remained: could Michael sustain this new paradigm? The uncertainty loomed larger by the minute. As the gathering dissolved, he felt the weight of his role shift. More was expected of him now. True leadership meant not just advocating for change, but embodying it relentlessly. Walking out of the meeting, Michael contemplated one stark truth: the risks and rewards of leadership were intricately interwoven. Would he be strong enough to navigate the complexities he had unearthed within himself and his colleagues? The answer held the potential to redefine his entire career trajectory. The next steps in this daunting journey loomed large. But for Michael, the stakes had never felt higher. The odyssey into authenticity was just beginning, and now, he stood teetering on the precipice of transformation. Would he be able to carry the weight of this promise and emerge on the other side renewed, or would he falter when faced with reality's demands? The moment of reckoning was drawing near. Michael stood at the threshold of the conference room, the familiar weight of anxious anticipation gripping him as he processed the tides of uncertainty he had navigated since that fateful meeting. The initiative he had championed in earnest attempt to forge an atmosphere of authenticity and vulnerability had blossomed in ways he scarcely imagined. Team members actively engaged in feedback sessions, sharing anxieties, aspirations, and the nuances of their lives that had previously remained hidden under layers of professional decorum. Days rolled into weeks, and Michael felt the tides of change swimming through the office culture. In unexpected moments, the polish of corporate professionalism yielded to unvarnished conversations about personal challenges, emotional well-being, and the painful reality of balancing work with the complexities of life at home. His suggestion to cultivate open forums bore fruit. Every week, colleagues gathered to discuss not only projects but to share personal stories, their struggles and triumphs. It was empowering. It invigorated a spirit of collaboration that had long been dormant. Yet, the breakthrough paradoxically deepened his scrutiny of self. Michael recognized that leading in vulnerability often meant wrestling with his own insecurities. He deliberated over the fear of being judged when sharing his imperfections, the spotlight sometimes feeling like a scorching sun. Would he indeed embody the change he advocated? Embracing vulnerability demanded relentless commitment. One morning, he discovered what truly lay beneath the surface of his own evolution: self-discovery through authentic dialogue. During a casual coffee break with David, his ally, they reflected on the projects ahead, and seizing the moment, Michael opened up. "I'm still grappling with imposter syndrome, even now," he admitted. "I'm constantly questioning my value in this leadership role." David leaned in, the camaraderie palpable. "You're not alone in that, you know. We all feel it sometimes. But look at the impact you've made. You're steering us toward a more supportive work culture. That's a legacy, Michael." Hearing those words resonated deeply within him. It sparked an inner dialogue about growth and acceptance. The idea he had once feared being perceived as vulnerable had now crystallized into something empowering. It was a beacon guiding him forward. He committed himself to establishing regular one-on-one check-ins with his team, using those sessions as opportunities to encourage proactive discussions about personal hurdles, professional aspirations, and the delicate balance of both. Emphasis shifted from a fixated focus on performance management to a clarion call for authenticity, a platform where emotional innovation fostered resilience. Each day, he engaged in candid conversations, chipping away at his own doubts while encouraging others to confront theirs. Reports from team members illuminated a collective spirit, from tensions easing in meetings to creativity blooming in brainstorming sessions. They were no longer merely colleagues. They had become allies, nurturing one another's growth. One afternoon, as Michael prepared for a presentation to upper management about the positive changes taking place, he paused to allow the weight of this moment to wash over him. He could feel the cracks opening in his past barriers, a transformation unfurling. Looking in the mirror, he didn't just see a man commanding a room. He saw a father, a partner, a mentor willing to step into the light not just for himself but for the legacy he wished to impart to Jake. Standing before the board, he harnessed this newfound confidence. "Our cultivation of a vulnerable workplace isn't merely a new trend, it's a necessity inspired by our shared humanity." His voice rang, steady and clear. He detailed the measurable growth within the team, the increase in collaborative projects, expanding innovation, and the enhanced morale that came from forming bonds grounded in trust. "We're not just colleagues. We're a unified force pursuing excellence in compassion." In that moment, he reveled in a deep understanding. True success was never anchored in accolades but rather in the connections built from shared vulnerability. As he concluded, a palpable shift aligned in the room: nods, murmurs of agreement, invigorated faces. They were ready to embrace this shift, and so was he. The tangible results: improved team performance metrics, higher engagement levels, and a noticeable decrease in turnover became testaments not just to Michael's ambition but to authenticity in leadership. With resolve building to secure the future he envisioned, he returned home that day, eager to reconnect with Jake. As they sat together, flipping through a scrapbook filled with cherished moments, he felt an overflowing sense of gratitude. His son's laughter echoed through the room, intermingling with the triumph of his journey. The next day, as he prepared for another pivotal meeting, this time to explore broader collaboration across departments and reinforce the cultural framework that had matured under his guidance, he reflected on his growth. The path ahead, though rife with challenges, was woven into the very fabric of dedication to authenticity and love for Jake. This wasn't merely a job, it was a journey of transformation, and now the contours of success brimmed with fulfillment, pride, and a solid confidence that reverberated far beyond the office walls. He had paved a path where ambition and vulnerability coexisted, passing on an enduring lesson to Jake: chase dreams relentlessly, but never at the cost of authenticity. Now was the moment to embody everything he had learned, to inspire others, and to step resolutely into the legacy he was building, fueled not just by professional success but personal connection. The future beckoned with endless possibilities, and Michael was ready to embrace every moment of it. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Remember, only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.